what it was like to die, what there was beyond this life. And I remember saying, am I just putting these words into your mouth, or are you really speaking them? And she said, you might just as easily say that I'm putting them into your mouth. I thought, my God, she's right. And I put those words in her mouth, but I didn't in another sense. So there was that kind of magic also in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
And she said a number of other remarkable things, which I unfortunately can't remember,
Yeah.
but I think of that as where she came. I can see her sitting there knitting a sock, and I asked her son, I said, what's it like to be dead? And she said, my dear, foolish boy, she said, never ask me a question like that when I'm turning a heel. She'd reached that point.
So you never got an answer?
No, right, I never got an answer. Well, I did eventually get an answer. But anyway, it's a magic place, and I would love to show it to you someday.
When you're not writing as much now, but when you were writing at full pitch, what was your workday like?
Oh, my workday was like most writers I know. I'd start fairly early and write until I ran out of steam, which might go on all day, but usually around 1 o'clock. And as you know, I'm sure, as anybody who writes to know, if you're writing a book that is working, if you're tapping some of the deepest places in yourself, it's one of the most, I keep using the word magical, not one of my usually big words, but you can't stop doing it. You can't. I remember when I was writing the books about Leo Bebb, I was so carried away by this preposterous character that I couldn't stop. I wrote one book about him, thought, well, now on to something else, a second book, a third book. I wrote 4 books about that man because he wouldn't let me go. And when I was writing, you mentioned today, The Son of Laughter, same thing. Once I got it off the ground, that always takes a little doing to sort of establish a new language, a new world. It was the same thing. I couldn't stop thinking about Jacob, trying to imagine myself back into the days of the patriarchs. And that was a place where Meilenberg played a part. I could hear him almost say, no, that's not the way to do it this way. And also your commentary on Genesis was of enormous use to me. I thought if you thought it was that way, then I'm sure it was that way.
I want to ask you a question that's a question of an old man asking another old man a question. I would think that you would say in order to write good novels, you have to have some secrets. That's my premise of my question. So the question is, what do you think is going to happen to novels if you have to have a secret? If people are on email and cell phones and blogs saying everything all the time so that nothing is left unsaid, so there are no secrets. Do you think that's a threat to the novel?
I don't happen to use email or blogs. So
I suspected not.
Right. I don't even know exactly what they are, but I can't imagine, just by the very nature of the working of these machines, that you would be telling it secrets. You're blabbing at each other. You're telling yourself what your plans are, but do you tell the secrets of your heart? Well, maybe you do. I wouldn't. I think I could only tell the secrets of my heart with a pen in my hand.
Yes.
The way the Lord intended.
Exactly.
Right.
That's right. Well, what I wonder about people who blab all the time, whether people might wind up with not because they tell them, but because there's not enough of an interior life to have any secrets.
Well, I think that's true. I think that leads me to something I've learned from politicians. If you're not crazy about the question you're asked, answer another question. This is related to, when people come to me and say, what must I do to be a writer? What I always say is find your own true voice, which is the hardest thing to do, because people, I think, when they start out writing, want to sound like writers they admire. They want to sound like Hemingway, or they want to sound like Stephen King, who knows who they want to sound like. Or they want to sound like people they think will attract the eye of the public. But neither of those will do. You've got to find your own voice that is only you, and I don't know how exactly you do it, except to search deeply into who you are. But one way of testing it is write a page or two and then read it to your wife or your best friend or your sister and say, tell me if this is my own voice. And they will know in 25 seconds if this is your voice or a phony voice. And that's the most important step. Find your own true voice. And that leads you, I think, the voice leads you back to that which the voice wants to tell, which is your secrets, who you are.
Which I suppose is a word to preachers who are
Yes.
who are afraid or timid, and we wind up preaching in a voice other than our own.
Absolutely true. And everybody can tell that this is
Yeah.
a phony. This is not the real thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Fred, you say in one of your, I think, interviews that homesickness is the basic sickness. You talk about that?
Yes, I can't remember how I got to that remark in whatever book it was in, but it is related at least to a sermon that I heard Buttrick preach around Christmas time back in the 1950s, where he said as he was leaving the church, he heard one parishioner yell to another, "Are you going home for Christmas?" And then Buttrick was so clever, he didn't explain. He just said again, "Are you going home for Christmas? Are you going home for Christmas?" And you knew without his having to say it that home was the manger. That's where home is. Home is where Jesus is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would say the deepest sickness we have is the homesickness. The deepest hunger we have is the hunger for home, to be where we belong, where all is well, where all is rich and all is forgiven and all is understood.
When you say it that way, it sounds to me like that's exactly how the venue of an authentic church ought to be.
Yes.
Ought to be home, where all is forgiven.
Right.
After all is confessed.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. And maybe there are churches like that. I hope there are churches like that. I don't know. Am I losing you again? The other thing I think of when I think of what the church ideally would be is I think of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not an alcoholic, but I've been to a number of their meetings, or Al-Anon meetings, and as I'm sure all of you, in one way or another, know, in an alcoholic meeting, they don't speak about God. They speak about a higher power, because a lot of people in the group don't believe in God. And the ritual you go through is, "Hello, my name is Fred. I'm an alcoholic," and then "Hello, Fred," and then around the circle you go. And that is, they have no book, they have no ritual, they have nothing but each other, and they say their higher power, or we would say God, but that's all it takes. And anything else is extraneous and confusing and leads to all sorts of dead-end streets. So if you want to know what at least I think, and the thing that makes me think that I might just be right is apparently Tillich used to say the same thing. If you want to know what the primitive church was like, go to an AA meeting. If you've never been to one, find your way to one. The honesty of it. They don't allow what they call cross-talking. If you say, "My problem is I can't," blah, 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 whatever it is, and somebody says, "Let me tell you what I think," no, that's forbidden. You just say what you have to say, and it is listened to, and what the hearers can do is say, "Well, in my experience, this is what happened to me." So it's a trading of witness. It's a leaning on the higher power, whatever name you want to give to it.
Fred, we need to stop, but it's my privilege to speak for all of us to express our enormous gratitude to you and our appreciation for you and our awareness about how you've invited us to be truth tellers and our love for you. And I ask that you bless us now.
Thank you, Walter. I'll just do it sitting down. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.